Hi, Kylie Dunn here and welcome to my plan with me for March 2021. I really have to get better at doing these a week earlier. For March, I decided to do birds as my motif or as my theme. So I did actually play in my sketchbook beforehand. I don't draw a lot of birds and I've never drawn cages before. So there is a bit of playing and setup that was involved in this one as well, which I thought I'd just very quickly show you at the beginning. If you've watched the other videos, you'll know that this is standardly how I set my month up. I have a nice simple sort of vertical calendar in there that I can put in key dates for things. So at a glance, I can see if I'm blocked out for a day doing something or if there's something really important due. And then I also put my focus area. So that normally has, I don't know, somewhere 3, 5, 7, depending on what I'm doing in the month of what are the priority things that I'm focusing on. And it's normally the things for me, or if there is a big deadline for a piece of client work. Now, for this month, I decided I was going to do watercolors for the birds, and you just saw the very quick, oh, here are the watercolor birds. What I did, you'll see them again at the end, is I did it on actual watercolor paper so I could get the nice watercolor effects that I've been practicing and playing with a bit. And I just decided I would do that and stick that page in. I decided I wouldn't stick it in until after I'd done all of this because we all know by now I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and so that paper's quite thick and I'd get bumps in lines and all sorts of things, and I was sure it was going to frustrate me, so I thought I'd leave it till the end. Now, as you can see here, I remembered to put my health and my mood trackers at the beginning of the month, where they should be, rather than forgetting them and having to jam them in at the end. It really is useful for me to do this because when they're at the end of the month, I really tend to forget to do it. It's this really weird thing that because I'm flipping back and forth to the month quite regularly, I see the mood tracker consistently and I sort of remember to do it. And I know I should just remember to do it anyway, but when I put it at the end, it just doesn't really work. So this is where it belongs, and I shall try to remember to keep putting it here. So yeah, of course, lots of different birds. I chose birds because I had played with them a little bit during my Skillshare projects. There were a few different things that I'd done, and they're pretty cute, and you get lots of different shapes and sizes, and you can add a lot of color in. It's one of those things with the night sky for the last month. It's quite nice, but you don't really get a chance to add a lot of different color into it. So this allowed me to be a little bit more colorful again, and we'll see how that goes. But the mood trackers, as always, are going really well, and the health tracker is working for me too. So this is something that I'm deciding to keep because why not? Now, you'll notice the layout is a little bit different for this month than it has been for the first 2 months. This is the other way that a lot of people do their bullet journal layouts, where you have this week to a page with slightly bigger spaces for each day because Saturday and Sunday are put together into one space and you don't have a space for notes. And I'm fine with it. I'll, give it a go and see how it goes. I did this a little bit last year, but not really consistently, not to the point that I felt, well, does it work or doesn't it work? The thing that I don't like about it is that I don't have a space to capture notes. So just thoughts and bits and pieces that come up. But what I decided to do is I've put a notes page at the end of the month. And so if things come up, I still have a nice, quick, easy place to refer to, and I'm going to see whether that settles my brain down a bit and if this layout will then work for me, because it's nice to have a different option. It's nice to have, a little bit of variety in it. It's one of the reasons that the bullet journaling works for me, is because it's a creative process and it's got variety and I get to have a bit of a play, and the manual process of drawing it up just makes me more engaged with it. And, it's quite a fun process that I go through to create these and come up with the different sort of things. And it allows me to stretch my creative muscles, and it just makes it more fun to use because it's all of my stuff in there. So, having a different way of doing it and just adding a bit of variety into that, I'm hoping will just add to that process as well. So the other reason that I wanted to do birds and that I like birds is, like I said, lots of colour, lots of everything else, but you can draw them really quite simply and everyone can tell it's a bird. It's not a particular species of bird, or breed of bird or whatever, but you can tell they're birds. Now, I have put a couple of specific types of birds in. So you would have noticed on the last page there was an owl. So I have, put a couple of specific things in here, and you'll see a few others, but really a lot of them are just generic bird. It's not like I'm drawing anything really overly specific in here, but that's fine. That's half of the fun of it, because then I don't have to worry about getting it right or having the right colour or whatever it is in there as well. So as I was drawing my sample birds into my sketchbook and coming up with different ideas and ways of doing things, I decided, I had this thought that maybe cages would be a nice motif to add into this, just to add a little bit more variety and a different way of sort of presenting the birds. And I really had a lot of fun drawing the cages, the ornate sort of nature and the different shapes, and just making them that little bit imperfect, but again, very clearly you know what these are, you know what's going on here. You'll also notice that the vast majority of the birds are either outside their cages or their cage doors are open and they're free to leave. I just didn't want to have a whole page of just birds all caged in, so I did sort of make them freely available to go if that's what they chose to do. I know, it's random. Now for the days of the week, I actually just on the fly came up with this would be the way that I would do it. I have previously used this sort of motif before. I did change pens to a really fine point pen, and I think that didn't work overly well for me. But yeah, it's just one of those things. I do need to just not make decisions on the fly, because I think I end up with something that's not incredibly cohesive, and I'm not overly happy. I'm not unhappy with them, but I'm not overly happy with how they came out. So, it's just one of those things. Now, this page, what I decided to do was take out that centerpiece and see how I felt about sort of just putting the theme images, the motifs, just inside some of the day areas and stealing a little bit of space that way, but allowing the days to go all the way to the center. Again, just to sort of see if this layout has a little bit of flexibility for me and there's different ways that I can use it and how I feel about that. So, just again, a little bit of a play just to see how it will work. I also decided to actually do a bit of watercolouring on the page, and that was good fun. The most frustrating thing though is, and you'll see me using a couple of different watercolour brushes in here, I had misplaced my good watercolour brushes. So my nice fine ones and just the ones that I really like to use. I'm in the process of redoing my studio, and I'm sure that I will sort of do a video run through of how this has eventually come out. Probably I still have, that last maybe 10% of things that need to find a home, and so it's still a bit deconstructed at the moment. But I had changed where I was keeping my watercolour brushes and my ink, and I couldn't locate them for love or money. And really, yeah, I have a lot of crap. I won't say that I don't, but I just could not for the life of me work out where I'd put them. And it wasn't until I was doing the next layout that I'll explain in a minute, where I decided I was going to do an ink wash, that suddenly my brain remembered that I had put my good watercolour pens with my ink. And that's great, except I could not remember where I'd put that either. So look, I've torn apart everything that I'd moved around and stored, and I did find them eventually, which is great. But yeah, it's one of those frustrating things that I hope doesn't happen to me too much with doing a reorg of my studio and everything else. But hey, that's life, that's how it works. So this page is Birds on a Wire. I decided that I would just do a really simplistic, like this is, I think, probably the most simple bird you can do, and then silhouette them, which is why I decided I was going to do an ink wash, because I thought, oh no, I'll do a nice simple ink wash along the back to sort of make it like dusk, not real full-on nighttime, but to make it a bit like dusk-like so that they're silhouetted, and that'll be a nice effect. And that meant I had to go hunting, so there was a bit of a gap. I did go hunting for the ink wash, for the ink, and I did find it, and that's fantastic. But then I did forget to start recording again when I painted that. Not that I think you're all going to be overly concerned to watch me actually do an ink wash on a page, but that was it. So yeah, pretty happy with how that one came out. It's quite cute. But that meant that what I decided to do was add a bit of colour to the days of the week. So otherwise this whole page would just be black and white, and you know, it's fine, but I just want to add a little bit of pop of colour, so I just did that simply with some crayons. All right, so the last day, or the last, day page, is the last 3 days of the month, which gave me a bit more space to do a little bit more drawing than the other ones. And I decided to put some puffins in, because puffins are adorable. They're hysterical to draw because they're just really random as anything. They've got really weird beaks, but they're adorable. And I'd done a bit of drawing of puffins for one of the courses that I did probably about 18 months ago. So I decided I'd have a special page just for puffins, because why not? So yeah, so this page, as I mentioned, because there's only 3 days for the last week of the month, I decided that I'd put a notes page in here. And so this will hopefully fill that gap of not having a page for notes each week, and will make that sort of more vertical layout can actually work a little bit better for me in that respect. So we'll see how that goes as well. But yeah, so these are my puffins, and again I decided to do an ink wash in here and sort of just try and make it look a little bit like a rock in the middle of the ocean, you know, as much as you can. But yeah, just add a little bit of texture to it by allowing it to dry in little bits and pieces. I quite like working with ink. I'd never really done it, and then I did it for one of the Skillshare courses last year, and I actually quite like it, but it's quite flat. And I don't really, I don't mind that, but it sort of has a place. So, you might see it a little bit more, you might not. We'll see how I feel about it. So the last 3 days, and then just setting up a notes page so I can see how that goes for me. So the final pages, of course, for me for the month are my reflection page and my quote, because I'm quite enjoying doing that. That's again stretching a little bit of my creative muscle and going through and doing that. So yeah, so I have a reflection page and then my quote for this month, which I realized just as I'm saying this, I forgot to write Maya Angelou on the bottom of it. So I shall need to go back and do that. But it's basically, a bird doesn't sing because it has an answer. It sings because it has a song, which I thought was quite nice as well. I was tossing up this month whether to actually make it a quote about birds, because the quotes don't need to be about sort of what I've made the motif about. But I was looking at like doing a creative quote and everything else, and then I came across this one. I'm like, oh no, actually I quite like that. So we'll chuck that one in and see how it works. So yeah, so this is the final page for my bullet journal for the month. And look, it's going well doing these videos. I hope that those of you who are watching and listening all the way through, I hope that you enjoy them. It's definitely one of those things that you don't need to listen to me prattle on. You can just watch me draw. You don't necessarily need an explanation to a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. But yeah, it's just one of those things that I'm quite enjoying actually sharing these. I wasn't really sure when I started doing January's. I'm like, yeah, I'm not quite sure about the vulnerability of this and how much it will stress me out and everything, but it doesn't actually stress me out to do this. It's quite fun. I hate doing the voiceover afterwards because I have to listen to myself, but I'm really trying to avoid doing that, so I'm trying to avoid any, any editing of this, and just trying to record it all in one go, and you get all the ums and ahs and bits I get wrong and everything else, because why the hell not? This isn't about anything being perfect, and it's great for me to have this as no, I can screw this up, it's okay. I can say the wrong word, I can and ah and do all of that, and I try not to do too much of it because I know it can be annoying to listen to, but it, it's one of those things that it's helping me crush a little bit of the perfectionism at the same time, because trust me, like, I've watched some of these videos from professional people who have been doing this for a long time, and what I produce is way less polished and everything else than what they do. But who cares? I'm not comparing myself to them, and I hope that you're not comparing yourself to me. I've done this for probably a little bit longer than you have, and it's not about that. It's about seeing what other people do and getting ideas and thinking how you might be able to, use those ideas to help you create something that keeps you going in the process of, planning things out and journaling and capturing all of that sort of stuff. So hopefully you've been enjoying them. If this is the third one you've watched, then I'm assuming that you are. And hopefully you've enjoyed much. Now this, I'm going to have to put a bit more glue and stick down a bit more because it's, not really all that fantastic. But that is my bullet journal for March. I'll see you again in hopefully not too long for April. Bye.